Have you ever done something because it sounded really exciting at first, and then after doing it for a little while, it either doesn't look as good or it just wasn't as fun? Maybe you have the willpower to stick through with it, even if it's not that good. If you can, more power to you. From personal experience, I know that I can't. At the first signs of boredom, I jump ship, even if the best is yet to come. This is probably pretty normal, especially in times where our choices are infinite. As the title suggests, I'm going to dive into this topic using gaming as an example, but you can replace the word gaming with anything really. You might start a new TV show and hate it after the first episode, or you can watch the first couple seasons and then drop it for whatever reason. I want to dive into why it's so hard to follow through on games and explore some different reasons. I have a couple answers to try to help at the end of the video, but honestly, implementing them is hard. It's easy to sit back and look at the finish line, imagining how great it must be to be there. Then when you actually try to do it and get there yourself, it's like running a marathon. Now, before I get too far ahead of myself, let me explain some things. So when I think about this, about not being able to finish games, I always go back to playing Horizon Zero Dawn about 5 years ago. I honestly don't remember the specifics of it and I'm too lazy to go back and look. It's been a long 5 years since then. The thing that stuck out to me about this game was how beautiful it was at the time. Other than Red Dead 2, which I did finish, these are probably my favorite graphics in a video game. Just looking at the gameplay tells you a lot about what into it. The whole world looks like this and has plenty of enemies. Based on this, no sane person would drop it halfway through, right? Well, this insane person did just that. I got the some tower thing and finished that mission. It was an integral part of the story. At this point though, I lost a lot of joy for the game. The story wasn't bad from what I remember, but the actual gameplay was a drag. Every mission was go here, shoot this with these arrows and collect the shit. I'm not necessarily a goopy goblin gamer brain guy, but this game didn't really click with me. If I wanted something for the story, I would go watch a TV show. That is a different argument for a later date. I don't want to get too into the weeds about my opinions on the game, especially since I hardly remember any of it. The main point of it was, quitting a game because of boredom is tricky, because not everyone likes the same things. For me, it depends on my mood. Sometimes I want to bash my head into a wall trying to defeat an Elden Ring boss. Other times, I want to sit back in my chair playing Stardew Valley or Civ 6. I'm a go with the flow kind of guy. I can easily get into something new, but I can also get out of that same thing just as easily. I'm not sure why that is. I've been like this since I was a kid. I don't think there's any way to change that. I would consider myself more of a rabbit in the tortoise and the hare story. Essentially, I just bum rush whatever I'm trying to do and finish it as soon as possible, when in reality I would be way better off taking it a day at a time. I feel like this is common in our modern society. We watch all these super successful people do all these cool things and we also want to do them. I've done this plenty of times. When I was younger, I would watch Scump play Call of Duty and want to go pro. So I would practice in a custom lobby by myself with aim assist turned off to increase my aim. The problem was, I would stop doing this after a couple of days, so I didn't really get any better at it. The same thing happened watching America's Got Talent. I would see some cool ass magic on there and then want to learn to be a magician. I would maybe work on it for like a day or two and try to learn a simple bar trick and then give up because it was way too hard. I think this stems from us wanting things we don't have, but not realizing that the amount of work put in is far greater than the eye can see. We're looking at the tip of the iceberg. Because of that, it's very easy to compare ourselves with others online, and want to look as cool as we perceive them. It is easy to watch YouTubers and think about how bad you feel for not completing a game, or being as good as a game as them. The issue with this thinking is that most of us are just normal people, the average. And as harsh as it is to say, the people who make these YouTube videos are not average, because if they were, we would not watch them. It can be tempting to think that those people are average because that is all you really know. So when you think about a game like Valorant or Spider-Man, you may think that all people are that good at Valorant or everyone completes Spider-Man 100%. That is very far from the truth. Not only does this misrepresent most of us, but it also affects motivation. Getting motivated to play something because of seeing it online does not have a lasting impact. It is a superficial way to jumpstart yourself into playing something. But unless you actually enjoy playing that game, your battery will dry very fast. To complete a game, there must be some internal motivation to see it to completion. For a person who is not uploading it online, there are two main reasons. One is that you enjoy the game. Very simple. This could stem from wanting to see the characters finish their journey to practicing speedrun. Two is similar to uploading it online, but a tad bit different. Two is playing games that others also play. This can bring a sense of bonding, which gives you something to talk about. Basically like bragging about beating Dark Souls 3 on Twitter. What makes YouTubers unique compared to others is that they have other reasons to finish a game. They have the same first two reasons, but also a third and fourth. The third and fourth are growing your audience and making money. Now, I'm not saying all YouTubers are just driven by this, but it is a factor whether they want it there or not. This leads me to my next point. Think of playing a game like burning a fire. The fire is your will to play the game. This fire can and is influenced by outside forces. Let me use Hollow Knight as an example. Hollow Knight is probably my favorite game I have ever played, but it took me 2 years to beat it. For anyone who doesn't know, Hollow Knight is a difficult Metroidvania game where you are a little bug exploring a lost kingdom. Now that probably doesn't explain very much, but it's not too important. I heard about this game prior to me playing it, but the thought of getting it never really crossed my mind. Finally, during COVID in 2020, I saw someone do a crystal dash in some video and it made me really want to get it. My internal fire was ablaze. Admittedly, I was horrible at it. At this point, I'd never played games like this before. I essentially only played shooters at this point, with the occasional story game that didn't involve shooting. It took me countless attempts to even beat the first boss, which is embarrassing because I think even someone who is blind could probably beat it. I continued to grind after beating it and then got stuck on the second boss. My fire was pretty quickly fizzling out, but beating Hornet brought me a lot of relief and reinforced that I should keep playing the game. Something to know about me is that I find most of my joy in games by exploring and figuring stuff out by myself. I think using guides for games or searching things up on how to do something ruins a lot of the enjoyment. That being said, Hollow Knight has some areas where if you miss one little exit or secret entrance, you will never find it without a guide. I cannot remember exactly what I missed, but I was running around the map trying to explore every nook and cranny. I could have done two things here. One was to open up a guide and continue on my journey. Or two, I could have wasted about 20 hours of my life trying to find where to go. After some deliberating with myself, I caved in and started using a guide. I was on my way to get one of the final movements in the game by fighting the lost vessel, and the guide helped me get there because I was so badly lost. What made being lost even worse is that there's no good fast travel in the game, and I can tell you this, I hated it. Even though I can understand it, no fast travel for my impatient monkey brain spelled disaster for my fire. And I know they have the stags and you can travel that way, but a lot of the times they don't really bring you anywhere you want to go. So not long after I beat the lost vessel, I dropped the game. I thought Hollow Knight was great, but felt it was dragged out. Deep down, I did not want to go back, but felt that I got all I wanted out of it. That was until I started watching these randomized bingo speedruns of the game. I would watch these as I was in bed ready to fall asleep. I learned a lot about the game just by watching and listening to the commentators of the game. But I also noticed something else. All the players were using some sort of fast travel using various resting points in the game. It turns out they were using a mod called Bench Warp. I saw this and thought to myself, if I ever got a PC, I would rebuy Hollow Knight and download this mod. This is a rarity for me because I usually don't play a game that I have already beaten 70% of. If I do, I will have to replay it from the beginning. And if I have to replay it from the beginning, I'm not going to want to slug through the beginning again. So I kept watching these bingo races until I really ran out of them to watch. These bingo races kept the Hollow Knight fire alive just enough to stall time until I built my PC about 2 years later. As soon as I built it, I downloaded Scrab and played the game with Bench Warp. I grinded through the game and beat it in less than a week later this time. Of course, I was better at the game from previously playing it and also was in a good headspace to grind bosses. What I really wanted to point out about this story is that even the most simple things can influence your experience on playing a game, good or bad. A fire burning and playing a game are very similar. You can replace the game with anything else and it would still apply. There needs to be a constant supply of firewood to keep the fire burning, dopamine being the firewood for us humans. Now there's 4 ways your fire's gonna die out. First way is that the fire dies if you leave it unattended to go to a different fire. think jumping ship for that fresh new game. The second way is that you feel that the game has given you all it can offer. I'm basically saying that the cost of time is not worth completing the game. This one varies person to person, as not all players value the same things. The third reason is that there's plenty of firewood to start a fire, but there's nothing to light it. This is a result of not wanting to play any games at this time. There's no real spark to play anything, so that firewood will never light. The fourth and final reason is that you purposely let the fire die out. Rather than finish a game, you can avoid that empty feeling when finishing something by purposely never ending it. With that in mind, what does this all really mean? I can think of a million reasons why we don't finish games. It really depends on the person, but I do have some ideas that could possibly help, and have worked for me. The first is, don't beat yourself up over games you don't finish. The whole point of bringing up the misperception of the average gamer was to show that not many people actually finish games, and that's okay. Only 28% of players on Steam have beat the final mission for Horizon Zero Dawn. Find any game you play and there are a surprising amount of people who do not complete them. 2 is defining your definition of completing something. Just because most interpretations of completion mean seeing the credits or getting all the achievements, doesn't mean that has to be yours too. Keep it a fluid definition, depending on the game you play, or hell, don't define it at all. Who cares? Gaming's supposed to be fun and a personal experience. Fuck everyone else. 3 is to limit how many games you buy or seek out. When you buy a game, don't buy multiple at the same time, or have your eyes on 2 things at once. If you play through game number 1 with an option behind it, then you will probably abandon ship easier at the first signs of boredom than if you didn't have that second option at all. If you only have 1 game to play, you will probably stick it out even if some parts are boring or they don't live up to expectations. This is a whole nother topic of there being too many choices, but I'm not going to tackle that right now. Speaking of expectations, number 4 is to limit them. If you expect too much out of a game and it does not live up to these expectations, then you will probably be an unhappy camper. When buying a game, or anything for that matter, try to envision what will actually happen when you do buy it. Picture the future you with that game or item and see if it seems worth it to continue that action. If it seems worth it, no harm, no foul of buying it and trying it out. But impulsively buying stuff expecting something without thinking it through is a recipe for disaster. This ending may not have been what you're looking for. You might have expected me to say, go tackle those games on your backlog, or go finish the games you didn't. Honestly, I think if a game is unfinished, or there is a backlog you have, there's probably a reason for it, whether you realize it or not. You may be saving them for a rainy day when you're in the right mindset for it, or there's nothing else to play. Or maybe you leave them unfinished because you don't like it. Maybe you hate the empty feeling finishing something leaves you, so you never finish that circle to avoid that. What I do know is, forcing yourself to play through something just because it is on a list of games you want to play doesn't always end well. When there's not an audience and no one really cares what you play, what is the reasoning behind forcing yourself to play something you don't really want to? With that, I'm gonna go. Thank you for watching and do whatever YouTubers normally tell you to do here.